Hello and welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. We're so glad you're with us tonight on Mystical Awakenings right here at KGRA. We have a dear friend and an amazing human being as our guest tonight. And would you like to?
Yes, well, he really needs no introduction, but
Right.
we get that out there. But Reverend Michael Carter has been a mainstay on Ancient Aliens. You'd all know him from there. But he's served various Unitarian Universal congregations in New York and in North Carolina. Michael has trained as an anti-racism trainer and has been recognized by President Clinton for his efforts. A longtime UFO contactee. His book, Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible, was in March of 2014, #1 on Amazon.com's list of UFO-related books. Michael has also appeared on George Norrie's Coast to Coast radio show and George Norrie's TV show Beyond Belief on Gaia Television. Other appearances include being a regular consultant on the History Channel's Ancient Aliens series, as well as being featured in the UFO TV documentary, The Real 4400, and UFOs, The Hidden Evidence on the Travel Channel. So, folks, we're just so pleased to have our friend back tonight. Welcome, Mr. Reverend Michael Carter.
Hello. How are you?
Hello, Michael, and
Good
welcome.
evening,
It's so
good
good
evening,
to
good
see
evening.
you.
Thank you for doing this.
DC.
Yes. So, how you been? I know you've been. Well, we talk all the time, but
Yeah. I've been okay. My daughter's graduating from high school Saturday.
Nice.
So
Wow,
all these
congrats.
parties and stuff we'll be attending tomorrow and graduation and Sunday. You know, things are going well. I think I told you about the show
Yeah.
that June 19th on the Travel Channel at
Yeah,
10 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's
Talk
my
about that.
bedtime.
Yeah. What is that show? Tell everybody what that
It's
is.
called Alien Encounters, Fact or Fiction. We shot in Roswell. I don't know if I'm on the first episode, but I like I told you, it just came out.
Right.
This is the first episode. The Ancient Aliens episodes, I don't think have come out yet.
Right.
And here we are. Here we are.
Here we are.
You know, the life is going, and we're 6 months into the year.
Yeah.
We're halfway through 2024.
How did that happen?
Woo! Wow. I don't know.
You know,
I don't know. I don't know. It's just time. Life goes on, and it goes.
it goes so fast.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember my mom telling me when I was younger, you know, the older you get, the faster time goes. And I thought she was crazy.
Yeah.
She's losing it.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
I'm here to tell you.
No, it's true.
It's true.
I remember when I was 21, it felt like time had speeded up. Like I don't have the words to explain it except for
Yeah.
to articulate it. But you know, and you have kids, so you know as they get older, you know you're getting older. So
Right.
And here I am. I'll be 67 next month. I'm hoping to get maybe another 30 years out of this journey. You never know.
Ought to be 67 again.
Oh man, it just goes. So you kind of want to live it while you got it.
Right.
Yeah.
But bless your
Not-
heart. I mean, you're a busy you know, I know because I'm right behind you. Well, right now we are both 66.
Yep.
But, you know, as we get older, it's harder to keep up. And you keep so darn busy, Michael.
Well, yeah, and that's why I had to back off of, you know, the Voices podcast, and you know, it's been crazy, but it's been good. But I mean, I'm planning to slow down. I was telling Arjay, you know, I want to retire in 3 years. I'll be 70, and that doesn't mean that I'll stop working, but I want to work because I want to and not because I have to.
Right.
And I'm trying to figure out a way to do that because, you know, I got a daughter in college. That money has to come from somewhere.
Right.
But I'm going to have a way where I slow down, and in between that, I'm not going to wait. You know, we have some vacations planned, and I know how to budget my time, for lack of a better word. But yeah, because it just goes really quickly, I just had a good friend die of cancer Friday.
Hmm.
Someone from my church, I have to do their memorial service, but they were older. They were in their 90s. My good friend was 83. Good life. So, when your friends start dying, it reminds you that you're not going to be here forever.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I got to tell you though, when I retired from my daytime job, it doesn't slow down. It gets faster. I just want to let you know that. That's okay.
Yeah, I know.
You'll be busy.
I think it's because of the times we live in, but you're right. I've heard people say, Michael, I'm retired and I'm busier now than I was.
Yeah.
But I think you have to be intentional about how you parcel your time, which is a spiritual discipline.
Right.
Otherwise, you won't be in on your life. It'll just be a blur. So we work on that together, Dawn and I. She's more of a type A than I am.
Yeah.
So I have no problem taking naps. I have no problem.
I don't either.
And she was raised in that Protestant work ethic, like we all were, that you got to accomplish, that you got to do, that you got to be doing. But I learned that that's a fallacy. And you just got to find out how to mix it up.
Right.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the Protestant Catholic thing, because I do want to get into the Bible tonight, because I love talking that with you.
Yeah.
And when I just think of these weird things, I always think of weird stuff, but
that's true.
I wanted to talk about the fact that Adam and Eve. Well, let's go there. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So what do they think that we weren't going to figure this out? Because, okay, if Adam and Eve were the first man and woman, Homo sapien maybe, their kids, what Cain and Abel, or okay, yeah,
Cain and Abel.
Yeah, and who were the daughters?
That I don't know.
It was Elizabeth maybe, or somebody, or
no, that I don't know.
Anyway, so what did they figure that they didn't figure that Cain and Abel were going to have sex with their sisters, because the Christian religion doesn't condone incest. So my point is this: that doesn't work. We know that genetically, and that that their kids would have So there must have been more going on, and more creation going on, and more men and women just than Adam and Eve to survive.
No,
right?
You're right. And again, if you go back to the Sumerian text, if you go to the Mayan Popol Vuh, this was a progression. Mm-hmm. And the first thing people do is they go, "Oh my God, there was incest," but not if the Garden of Eden was a laboratory.
Right.
And so that would make sense. But you also notice there wasn't the taboo then, at least in a lot of cultures, because, for instance, if you go a few thousand years after Genesis, the Egyptians were sleeping with their cousins, and because they kept the bloodline together. Right. Now, if you do that now, you can see your kids don't wind up as healthy or what have you. So it's hard. We have to remember that we can't put our 21st century sensibilities on what was going on back then.
Okay.
But having said that, if you look and research, and if you read, for instance, Mankind's Reptilian Past by E.A. Boulay, he goes into great detail that there was a progression. In other words, they created something and they said, this is not working, so we've got to create something else. Or, this way. And so we were a progression. Then you have the time of floods, when some people didn't survive, or most of humankind didn't survive. And so these beings come down and they do like a 2.0 kind of thing. So, all those things have to be kept in mind, because, the running joke is, well, who, are they Adam and Eve? Who's left? But there's probably other beings around as well.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And, there was,
and maybe they got together as well. And, and then maybe that didn't work. So, maybe we got some, what do you call them? Minotaurs. We got centaurs. We got these mermaids. The book of Enoch talks about all these experiments and these beings. So it looked like it was a smorgasbord until they got what they wanted. And what
Well,
they wanted was people to work for them.
and
This
so
particular group.
this is the next question now. So I know Adam and Eve didn't have, and I'm not trying to, be in any way. I'm not trying to disrespect people, but I know Adam and Eve didn't have Asian and didn't have white, Caucasian, and didn't have black and brown and red and in them. So what happened there? I mean, how do they explain that? I mean, the offspring just didn't turn into, a white person.
Right. Well, maybe they did, but we know that there were migratory patterns.
Yeah.
And, depending on where you migrated from, if you were migrating from the deserts of Africa, you may have been darker skinned. Your phenotype may have been different. Maybe your nose, your nostrils were a different, people might, and then that was part of evolution. If you look at the Talmud of Emmanuel, a lot of controversy around that. Billy Meyer's story of the story of Jesus, Billy says that the Palladians obviously don't believe in a God. They call it creation, not the creator, but creation.
Yeah.
And they say that creation is the creator of the human races, the red race, the white race, the black race. So those races did exist, but you also have to remember that the ancients didn't look at race the same way we do. I mean, they noted the difference, but it wasn't a big deal. People look different, just like extraterrestrial races look different. When you see these artist depictions of galactic councils and whatever, you see different races, species,
and different type of beings. Yeah. So, I mean, my thing is, there's people out there that say that maybe if you're on the Anunnaki theory, that maybe they created different looking beings, human beings, to tell who belonged to who. You know what I mean? Like these people over here.
It's hard to do that when you intermarry, because then you've created one of the things about interracial couples or interracial marriages. When you have children, you've created another race of being. Right. Without any mysticism, without any working with you. If I married a Chinese person and we had a kid, and especially if I was one of the first to do that, you've already created another being. Yeah.
So my thing is, if they say that Homo sapiens are 200,000 years old, roughly, I'm having a hard time gripping with the evolution. It must have been a quick thing, because what I'm trying to get is that I think there was some genetic tampering going on. In my mind.
Well, no question, and those numbers don't really mean anything in the sense of, and I go back to our friend Plato. Plato says that there's a cyclical catastrophe, and he learned this from Solon, who was a Greek Babylonian, who learned it from an Egyptian, who learned it from an Atlantean. And so if that is true, then most of these people were wiped out. And if these beings come back, or some beings come back and they reboot, then you're kind of starting over again. Maybe there's an upgrade. Yeah. So, there's been many cataclysms, we're told, by the Hopi and by Plato. So I was 200,000 years ago. Okay, but if there was a cataclysm before that, then you're missing the time, the 450,000 years before that. Right. So it's hard to get a concrete number of when civilization started. All we know is that it's way older than what we're being told. but they're not. These scientists and archaeologists, they're not all, but they're not making room for what Plato. I mean, look, we got people still arguing whether Atlantis existed. They're arguing over this.
Sure.
Meanwhile, if you go back and read Plato and Herodotus, they talk about it. Why would they lie about this?
Right.
So humankind, all we know, is much older than what we've been told.
Yeah, not only that, I think Atlantis was a lot bigger. It was like spread all over the place. I think that one little city they talk about, the circle, it was just one city of it. But I just recently listened
Atlantis was a continent.
Yeah, a continent, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a city.
Right. And I listened to this the Awakening conference, and somebody was saying this, and just very interesting, because I've heard this before from other people that, we actually live in a double binary sun system. And the other sun is a brown sun. And check this out. It comes into close to us every 4,200 years. So that might be the cycle of, like you said, about every 5,000 years, we might have some catastrophes going on because of this, that it gets close to our sun. The closest it gets to our sun and comes into near our area. So that might have something to do with it.
It could. Yeah. I mean,
I don't know. I have to check it out a little more, but
Sitchin talks about Marduk and, I mean, that's not my field, but I'm anything is possible.
Yeah.
But it could be just, things like a pole shift, that the earth flips on its axis. It could be a meteor hitting us. It could be any of those things.
I see.
And obviously they've happened before, at least according to, if you read Critias and Timaeus, Plato's works.
What was, if you know what this wormwood thing was that people talked about in the Bible, there's something.
It's mentioned in the book of Revelations. I don't know whether it's a comet. There's something from the sky that sounds like, and they call it wormwood, and it hits the ocean and it poisons the oceans, and there's earthquakes and all that. It sounds like it could be some type of extinction level event.
Right.
It's up to interpretation, but it's definitely something that comes from.
It wasn't good. I know
outside.
that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah.
All right, so I got that off my chest, the Adam Eve thing. So, all right, now I'm going to go to this Moses guy. Who the heck was this guy? Now, was he a baby that floated up on the Nile, and they just took him out of this thing? But to me, Moses, there's a lot of theories out there, and speculation, information that he was much more than that. One can say he might have been one of the Anunnaki, but who was he talking to up on the mountain? Who was he getting these commandments from?
No, that's a great question. What we've been told is that he was an Egyptian, and that his mom got, as the story goes, put him in the bulrushes, and he was discovered. And he was, he was a stutterer. Which is one of the reasons he told Yahweh that he didn't want to take on this mission.
Right.
Because he says, I don't speak, I'm not eloquent, I'm not articulate. And Yahweh said that doesn't matter. And so he became a Yahwist. He was a Yahwist. And so,
and let our listeners know that you and I, we both agree that Yahweh probably was an extraterrestrial, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much, if you go back and you look at, again, Stitchin's work or the Mesopotamian text, in the Sumerian narrative, he is Enlil.
Enlil, yeah.
And he's the one who's a warrior, short fused, and he wanted, very ambitious, anger problems. He wanted to keep human beings as a source of workers.
Right.
And Enki did not want that. He loved humankind. He warned humankind about the flood. Yeah. And remember, these floods are in the Mesopotamian text, Babylonian text, and in Genesis.
Yep.
If you look at Deuteronomy 32:8, you will see that, and it depends on your translation,
Right.
but it says, when the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of man to the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of sons of Israel. So basically, where it says the Most High, that's the Elohim.
Yeah.
And that's also one of the high Elohim. It's the Most High, not the Most High God, but let's say maybe that would be a commander of the ship.
It might be Enki, right?
It could be Enki.
Yeah.
I mean, no.
No, not Enki.
He gave it to Yahweh.
Yeah, that's right.
Yahweh was given the tribe of Jacob. Yahweh was giving, but what happened was, and Yahweh, you can see Yahweh didn't get a lot of land. He got the tribe of Israel, not even the whole tribe. The thing with that is he didn't get much land. That's why he had the Israelites taking land, fighting for him, taking land. And so that's where we get this was an invasion. And even if we look at, I'll bring another. Let's look at the Aramaic. And so when you got the land, you got the people on the land.
Yeah.
You got the people on the land.
Yeah,
and Yahweh went into other people's land because he didn't get much land. And so that tells you he was a junior officer. He wasn't a high-ranking person. And so that's why he was fighting, and he had these people taking other people's lands.
Didn't they actually give him the water? I mean, he could rule over the water. I mean, I read something like that where.
Well, that was just saying his powers. He could ride his ship over the waters.
Yeah,
but that little sliver of land was what he got. Does it say it in here in the Aramaic translation? Yes, they use the word the Most High. Some translations it's El Shaddai. But when the Most High divided the nations, when he separated mankind, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion, the Lord being the Elohim's portion is his people. He got the tribe of Jacob. He found him in a desert land in the waste and wilderness. So he didn't get a lot of land. Right. And so he took his, he had people fighting for him and working for him. Now you see the other thing in the Vedas. In the Vedas, where they talk about, when you read the Mahabharata, the Hindu scriptures, you have the gods fighting each other. Who's helping them fight? Yeah. Human beings. And there were other gods there, because when Yahweh says, I'm a jealous God, I don't want you worshiping these other gods. I don't want you making craven images of these other gods. I don't want to hear you talk about Komash, Baal, Asherah, Ashta. I don't want to hear their names.
Right.
I am your God. That doesn't sound like an infinite, transcendent, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent being. That sounds like another entity.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. They, in the India history, they were flying around in these flying machines, and they had some really hellacious wars.
The same thing in the Bible. When you read Stitchin's The Wars of Gods and Men, if you read the Mesopotamian text, the Hindu text and the Mesopotamian text, they have no problem talking about flying machines.
Right.
Only the Christian, the Judeo-Christian texts try to monotheize it. Yeah. That there's only one God. But primitive Judaism was a combination of many gods. Right. And we talked about this in the 6th and 7th century. They doctored up the scriptures, but they also to make it seem like one God, and they tore down all the what do you call them, the altars and what have you, King Hezekiah and King Josiah, his grandson, they wanted to make Judaism a monotheistic theocracy. And so you have one God, one high priest, one temple in Jerusalem. It was just easier to govern that way. Yeah. It's not a big mystery. We do that today. Yeah. You know, everybody's going to be a Yahwist. Okay, Yahweh's the God, and whoever the king is going to be, you have the king, the high priest. You got one temple that was going to be in Jerusalem. You know, collecting all the wealth, and you have them saying Yahweh's going to say what's fake news. Yahweh's going to tell you the Yahwists are going to tell you what's fake news and what isn't, and we see that going on today.
Right. I mean, was that during Akhenaten? Am I saying that right?
Akhenaten? No, this was after. This was in the sixth. Well, actually, this was in Akhenaten was before. Yeah, because this is after the Exodus.
Yeah.
They
tried that back then too.
6th or 7th century.
Yeah, they tried that back then though too. You know, to make it one monotheist, and then it didn't go so well for them. But they was kicked out. But and I'm telling you what, if you see pictures of Akhenaten, I mean, I even if it's an artist, depicting what those folks were not from here. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't. They look like they were not.
Yeah, they're not from here.
Fully human.
Right.
But and this is what we have. This is what we have today. I mean, you have these beings come down, and there's a pro and con to it. The cons are, and they weren't all like Yahweh, but they were very human. Yeah. They made love, they drank, they fought each other, they got jealous. You see it in the Greek pantheon with Zeus. They raped people, they carried on. And so, the good thing they taught us, if you will, was what plants were good. They taught us what plants were good for consciousness, what plants weren't. Asherah supposedly taught people how to make beer in Sumerian times. And Ben Franklin says beer is God's way of telling that he loves us. They gave us how to create cities and urban living and sanitation and animal husbandry and agriculture. Yeah. And then you have another group that wanted to keep us ignorant, that we didn't even know we were naked, that didn't want to warn us when we were about this earth change, about the flood, that kind of thing. Yeah. But the other cons of that is they teach you how to use money. They teach you this is going to be a ruler. So now you start getting the have and the have-nots. This is how we're going to cultivate this land. This land belongs to the king. Okay, now you got people who don't have land, and you got people ruling over. And we have that today, but that's where we got that from. We got that from the gods. If I'm a king, if I'm an extraterrestrial king or queen, I'm the ruler because I invaded your planet. Okay, then I have a child. Now I have a hybrid, which is what the Epic of Gilgamesh is about. The Greeks call them titans. You're hybrid, demigods. Yeah. So now I got a son, and so after 230,000 years, now my son is ruling. Okay, so now my son rules. Okay, I leave. My son is there. So then maybe my son has a human wife. Okay, so now you got these demigods. So then they leave. They go off planet or underground or wherever they go. So what do? You know what? Deb, RJ, you've always been loyal to me. You guys are going to be the next high priest and high priestess. You will take care of everything. So guess what? How are you going to rule the people the same way you saw me rule?
Right.
And if I was an egotistical maniac, that's what you're going to be. You're going to keep that going. And
Well,
that's where we learn that from. That's
Yeah.
where we learn that from now. That's what I think. Because otherwise, how would we know how to do that?
Yeah. I mean, I always struggle with the fact that, these people, the Anunnaki, those from heaven to earth came, they obviously were pretty far advanced in technology, but to me, they didn't seem like they were very far advanced in spirituality because, I mean, if we were created in their image, we're always warned. They were always making wars and they're fighting. And to me, that's not a high level of spirituality. Where you're always warned and trying to take over, and you're always trying to put your mark here and there, and trying to have people worship you and all this. So my thing is maybe they and what some of their even their spaceships were. When people explained them, they sounded like they were more in the rocket stage. You know what I'm saying? They had flames coming. They're kind of using fuel, but so maybe they weren't that far advanced, but they knew how to travel here from where they came from. But
that's pretty far advanced. I mean,
yeah, that's pretty far. Yeah, that's pretty far advanced.
I mean, because we can't even do that now. But again, as we said at the top of the show, remember, all of them weren't like that.
Yeah,
there were people who when Daniel's in the lion's den and they're getting ready to hand his butt to him, who comes? We don't know what race or what species they were, but an ET comes and saves him.
Yep.
Okay. When Abraham and Sarah are trying to, they're just trying to make a life, and the beings come and say, Abraham, this is what your destiny is. Your wife is going to have a child. Do you know what I'm saying? If we go to the New Testament, we'd be talking about maybe a different race of people than what Jesus, that Jesus is talking about. Come on, man. They help Paul when he's going to Rome. An angel comes and comforts him. They get Peter out of prison at one time in the book of Acts. So they weren't all ne'er-do-wells, and I think that's what people have to hear. The other thing is that they're not gods, man. They're extraterrestrials, okay?
Right.
All of them are not going to have a high level of spirituality. When the Native Americans were here, and you could argue these alien people, the European comes and wipes them out. That's not a high level of spirituality either. You know what I mean? So I think that we kind of expect these beings, and some of them are, obviously, but that doesn't mean all of them are. And just because you have high technology doesn't mean you're a deeply spiritual person. It just means you have high technology. Look at our country.
Right.
We have a lot of technology here, but we're struggling.
Yeah. I agree. That's cool. Yeah, I can accept that. That's that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. You don't want to hold them to a higher standard, because that's what makes them gods, and they're not. They're not. They're just high technological societies, and some of them are deeply spiritual. If you want to look at, if you want to look at some of these beings and the Hopi tradition and whatever, the Mayan, the Popol Vuh, some of them are deeply spiritual, and some of them are neutral. They're observant, and some of them are, we're just primitive. We're just primitive. Why do we want to get involved with these people?
I'm not trying to change the subject a little bit, but
it's okay.
And it's not really change the subject, but when Moses came down from the mount and with his commandments, there were people down there worshiping this cow or this bull.
Yes.
And in India, they revere the cow and the bull as sacred. And I told you this on the phone a few months back. I feel that maybe, and I'm speculating, but that they were what is found in the constellation Taurus, the Pleiades.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, and we see this bull in the past with this big, sun around it and stuff. But so I'm thinking maybe they were worshiping a cow or a bull, but maybe the constellation Taurus and maybe the Pleiadians.
That makes a lot of sense. What we do know, again, and it does make sense, RJ. Listen, they were worshiping another god, and Yahweh wasn't going to have it.
Right.
Now, if they were worshiping the constellation Taurus and the Pleiades, that's fine. Those are other gods.
Yeah.
Those are other extraterrestrials. And he made it very plain that he was not going to tolerate that.
Right.
And he, I don't even want any images made. And so there's an image of a bull. Right. So I think that's just as plausible as anything else.
Yeah, I mean, it just came to me, and I thought, well, maybe that's what it was, because we have to understand the Anunnakis, and it doesn't necessarily, like you had pointed out, doesn't mean they all came from the same place. They may be a bunch of different people that came here.
Well, yeah, like Americans, we go to Europe. Yeah. I'm coming from North Carolina. You're coming from Michigan. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're still Americans, but we may be coming from other places in the star system.
Right.
And they may not all have looked alike.
Yeah, true.
As well.
Yeah.
So, those are things that we keep in mind.
Right.
But looking at these texts, we get a clue. We also get a clue that the three planets mentioned in the Bible are Sirius, Orion, and the Pleiades.
Right.
So, that may give us a clue as to where some of these beings came from. And then you have to ask, well, how did these people even know that these planets existed?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm pronouncing this right, the Dogon tribe in Africa.
The Dogon in Syria. Dogon. Right over there, yeah.
They said, they had these beings come out of the sea, which probably they just hide in there, and told about Sirius A, Sirius B, and Sirius C. And that was, scientists didn't know about it. And they were telling scientists back in, the 30s?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it was discovered until much later. So, yeah. And so, some of these beings in the sea may have had bases there. If you look at Job, they call it a great whale, but maybe it was a U.S.O, submerged. So, but I mean, it's all there. That's what I'm saying. The Bible is beautiful, and there's some wisdom and stuff there, obviously. But it's also, see, when you look at the Bible as a book of morals, you get screwed.
Yeah.
Because that's why people, they leave for many reasons. But people say, I can't worship a God like Yahweh. And I say, of course you can, because he's not a God. And he does things, he commits genocide. He tears up Sodom and Gomorrah with a nuclear blast. Of course, you don't want to worship that.
Right.
But if you look at the Bible as stories not as stories about God, because the idea of God is in the Old Testament, but it's not there. But if you look at, you start hearing maybe about God, later on and then into the New Testament. But if you look at it as a book of our ancestors telling us that we were invaded, man. And this is what it was like living with these beings, walking the earth with these different races, fighting each other, fighting amongst ourselves. Then you say, okay, now it starts to make sense. Now I don't have to worship a guy who would genocide people, who would want virgins and take all of the virgin girls and take all of the gold and silver and take babies and dash them up against the sun. Yeah. Because when you worship it, when you look at it like that, you go crazy.
Right. And
then you got guilt. Well, wait a minute, but this is God, and they're warlike, and it's not a spiritual book in that sense, especially the Old Testament. It's a book about paleo contact, and paleo contact obviously means us having contact with other off-planet civilizations. That's what that book is about.
So
That's
then
what that book is about.
Yeah.
Now, the New Testament is about that too, but Jesus is bringing in another sensibility. Because he never mentioned Yahweh's name. As a matter of fact, he actually talks bad about Yahweh without calling Yahweh's name.
Yeah, I was going to say, you sitting next to me, you were kicked out of Sunday school, weren't you?
Twice.
And why was that?
Because I questioned everything and asked for proof.
Yeah.
And
yeah. You can't be doing that.
So we were talking the other day about the guy that wrote the book Chariots of the Gods, Eric Van Donigan. He was
Van Donigan.
He was a man of the church and all. He was pushy too. I mean, how he's saying, like, how can they take this man up in heaven and he can see all these things? Because he would die if he was, he had to be in some kind of a vehicle or a ship or something, So, and that book changed a lot of people's. I mean, here we are, since then.
Thanks to Eric. Thanks to Eric. Thanks to
Billy Meyer.
Many people. Billy Meyer. Thanks to Dr. Barry Downing, UFOs in the Bible, back in 1968. The list goes on. And they may not have been always historically accurate. That's not the point. The point is that they got you to think out of the box.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the Bible, when you just go, hey, these are our ancestors trying to describe what they saw, but they didn't have the vocabulary. It's a flying chariot. It's a flying shield, as Josephus talks about in the wars around Jerusalem. They're trying to, wow, man, I don't even know how to describe this. And that's when they're having a problem describing it. And then this is not a book of I'll give you another example. That Yahweh obviously is not God. And Samuel, the people want to get rid of Samuel because they think his sons are, they're crooked. They're a little greedy and they carry on and they want to get rid of Samuel. And so they want to get, and Samuel's a Yahwist.
Yeah.
So they tell Samuel, we don't want to worship Yahweh anymore. Looking for it. They tell Samuel, no. 1 Samuel chapter 8. The people want human rule because they accuse Yahweh's prophet Samuel and his 3 sons of being corrupt. You have to ask yourself, if Yahweh's God, why would the Israelites want a human king?
Exactly.
And so what happens? Yahweh pulls back. They say, you're fired. He pulls back, but he doesn't leave. He's still involved with their foreign policy, but behind the scenes.
Working behind the scenes, yeah.
And they elect Saul. Yeah. Okay, now David came after Saul,
right.
But, and Saul was depressed, and, that's what scholars diagnosed him with. And but Saul, Yahweh and Samuel get angry with Saul. So you get my point. If he's God Almighty, right. Why would we say, no, we don't want you, we want Samuel? but Samuel, they get rid of Samuel because Yahweh told Saul to wipe out this tribe they were fighting. It's go 1 Samuel chapter 8. I'm not making it up. Look it up yourself. And Saul doesn't do it. And so Samuel, representing Yahweh, says, you've displeased Yahweh. Yada, yada, yada. Y'all can read it on your own. But what kind of God tells you to go over down the block and wipe out everybody? So you got to see. But if you think that's God, if you worship a God that does that, you wind up having wars like Ukraine.
Right.
You wind up having wars in the Middle East because you figure if your God is vengeful, if your God is it's okay to blow people up and carry on, then you're going to do that and think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. So now we've got. I want to let you know because we always go over. We've got about 8 minutes, but 9 minutes anyway. I want Shelley Cooper, that painting that you're talking about. Absolutely, that's a famous painting and done by a famous artist. But it does depict a UFO.
Yeah, it's by Ert. It's by Ert, Eert, Ert de Gelder.
Yeah.
He's a Flemish artist, and it's called The Baptism of Jesus.
And there's many paintings like that where there's UFOs in the sky. They just
especially in the medieval time.
Yeah, because you couldn't talk about it, but and that's how they kind of hid things through paintings and stained glass windows and churches, and they were kind of clues of what was going on. But yeah, so cool. Yeah, so I don't know how we're going to wrap this up because you and I never are going to wrap anything up. We're just going to keep talking about stuff.
Well, we'll wrap it up for tonight, but there's always
yeah. That's what I'm saying. So.
And then in September it'll all blow up.
Yeah. No, Michael is going to be at our UFO conference in September.
Michigan UFO Contact.
Yes.
And it's going to be great. And you need to be there if you haven't got your tickets. And we'll go into this a little more and talk about invasion because that's, to our listeners, that's what I want you to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how to wrap it up. That we were invaded.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What our ancestors, that's called invasion. They talk about it in Hinduism, the Vimanas, the Popol Vuh, the Mayans. We were invaded. And even though I don't agree with everything my government does, who does? I do get it.
Yeah.
Why they are not touching this. Because, yes, it's national security stuff and whatever. Yeah. But to tell your citizens, not only that you were invaded, but we can't stop the invasion.
That's right. They can't.
And that some of the people who invaded are still here and we've got treaties with them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying that. But I can see the reticence.
Yes.
That how do you break that to people?
Right.
So and maybe between now and from now on going on, this disclosure is coming drip by drip. It's not a whole big to do, but little by little they're giving us crumbs, but we'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
I guess.
But just to keep that in mind, that we were invaded, that all our religious texts talk about this in some way, shape, or form, and we got 5 minutes, and that we need to talk. We need to be able to talk about that, even if it's just ourselves, at conferences or meetings and stuff. We were invaded, and we are invaded now. And I can go into that, but we only got 5 minutes. But we've been told that. Hayam Ashad, the former Israeli space defense.
I heard him when he talked.
He said the United States, as well as other countries, have been in touch for over 70 plus years, which takes you back to Truman and Eisenhower.
Right.
That there's bases on Mars, that there's some extraterrestrials who want disclosure, and there's some who don't.
Yeah.
There's some who don't. But we're getting our marching orders from them. So, it gets a little more complicated. And that there is a galactic council. He says there is a galactic, and they didn't kill him, and they didn't poison him, and he didn't get some rare form of cancer, and we can go on and on with these names. Gary Nolan is talking about it. Jacques Vallée is saying he's working on exotics. So we're getting disclosure. It's just not the way you want it to happen. But nobody's fool enough to walk out on the White House lawn and say, guess what, folks? We've been lying to you for 80 years.
Yeah.
We've even had to kill some people who got too close. No one's going to say that. That's treason.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And
going to say we're signing, we have treaties with people because that's against the Constitution. No, your political life in your private, it's over if you come out and say that.
Yeah. And also, we talked about this. They also have a say in it too.
Well, that's what I was saying.
Mhm.
If
Yeah,
there's a galactic federation,
Yeah.
and you got star people saying we don't want disclosure yet. Remember,
Right.
because you got some people who are for and some people are against.
Right.
There, you know, then who do you think we're listening to?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a touchy situation. It's, you know, we got so many people involved here on this planet now, billions of people. And, you know, how do you do it without, you know, I don't know. I wouldn't know how to go about doing disclosure, but because the lie has been going on so long, I don't know how they're going to turn this around, but
They're doing it now.
Yeah, they're doing it slowly.
now.
And for me, of course, it's not fast enough, but I get it.
Yeah. The 12th Planet. Yeah,
Yeah.
Zachariah Stitchin. Read the whole series,
Yeah.
Miss Radu. Read the whole series. Just
Yeah.
not the 12th Planet. Read the whole series.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Thank you.
We were talking about that today. Yeah, thank you, everybody. And listen, I want to thank our listeners. Michael, I want to thank you for the short notice you have it here coming with us. And it's always a pleasure and always very knowledgeable. And
Can I do a shameless plug? Can I
Yeah.
plug something?
Please.
I don't know if I'm in the first episode, but June 19th, 10 o'clock, Discovery Channel, Alien Encounters, Fact or Fiction. I did that show. I don't know which episode. I went out to Roswell. It's a brand new show,
right.
June 19th at 10 o'clock on Discovery. And look for
Must be R-rated.
Ancient Aliens. I keep my clothes on. Look for Ancient Aliens, The Chosen, and The Teachers. Those two episodes. They're not out yet. I've been looking.
Okay.
And of course, I'm going to see you guys in September.
Yeah.
Along with Natalie. I saw Natalie on here, Olsen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Y'all get your
Can't wait to
tickets
see
and
her.
come on out.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody needs to be there. And I was, I want to point out all of this information. This is why these conferences are so important. So people can connect, get the information firsthand, and learn together.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you said, if you don't have your tickets yet, get them. www.miufocon.com. So
we love you, brother. We
Yes.
tell your wife and daughter we love them too, and we will talk soon. And appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I got one more to do. Then I'm going to rest.
Okay,
Yes.
love you,
I'll
man.
call you when the game comes on.
Okay.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right, bye.
Okay, everybody have a wonderful night until we meet again. May all of your awakenings be mystical.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night, everybody. We love you.